I've now got a rare treat, which is the amazing Peggy and Salz. She's going to be moderating an exceptional panel this morning. So Peggy and Salz is from MobileGroove. Come up to the stage, Peggy, if you can. She's going to be joined by Michal Grno from Pixel Federation, Ryan Cook from Digital Turbine, Hagop Hagopian from Appvertiser, Arunabh Madhur from SHAREit Group, and Dale Lawrence from Bango. Guys, could you please come up onto the stage? And give them a round of applause.
Well, we've had some introductions, and I'm just... Oh, I don't need that one. And just give me a moment, because I was... Yeah. No, just because it got a better battery than me. I've got a little jet lag. I came from the States, and then I went to Germany, and I came here. But I am psyched about this panel because it's almost like a dating game of possibilities and solutions, because it's so exciting if you think about it, particularly in Europe, legislation, everything that's going on. There is more out there. You know, organic is about being out there, having a presence, awareness, driving traffic to your game without paying for it. Well, that means being everywhere. And now, the good news is, with 2 app stores, but also more than a duopoly, that's the good news. And the bad news, the not so good news, it's been a duopoly for so long, we probably don't know what to do. We don't have a playbook. That's what we're going to be sitting here and learning. So let me just introduce our panel. Kelly did a great job, but I am a journalist at heart, so I dig in a bit more. Just to give you some perspective, because you've got to catch up with these guys later, right? You want to talk with them, you want to meet them, and you want to say, hey, Dale, you know. So we'll start with Dale. Dale Lawrence, Head of Client Solutions at Bango, a payment technology firm with an addressable reach base of over 3 billion mobile users. Bango was founded way back in 1999. Full disclosure, I probably covered them when they started, and they've remained pioneers in mobile payments to this day. Dale just started his role this month, so congrats, Dale, and welcome to our panel. Then we have Michal Grno. Yeah, Michal, Head of Marketing at Pixel Federation, free-to-play developer and publisher, very cool company I've been looking at. Founded in Slovakia in 2007. Company now employs more than 300 people, more than 140 million players worldwide. That's why he has not just one piece of swag, 2, t-shirt under, close to his heart. Popular titles like Diggy's Adventure. Michal has been with them since 2014 as a games analyst. And here's something for you. He originally wanted to be a big-time banker or a monetary policy expert, which isn't quite the way it ended up, but I'm sure, nonetheless, pure gold when he speaks. So welcome, Michal. Great to have you. And next, okay. I'm just going to go down the row here. I did a lot, so we got to do this here. So we got Hagop. You were last because you weren't in the briefing. But Hagop, Hagopian, he's, if you don't know him, you have to. He's founder, CEO of San Francisco-based growth marketing agency Appvertiser. I also look at and watch. There's not a company here that isn't worth knowing and covering, so you get to know them as well. Companies specialize in helping app developers achieve positive ROI and drive growth. And he'll share some of these secrets with us. That's great, because we're here on a panel to learn those growth stories, a couple growth hacks, something you want to find out on his LinkedIn. He loves games at multiple levels, because he's also a former football, or I would say soccer manager, and still enjoys playing the game. Welcome, Hagop. And we got quite a panel, what can I say? Then we got all the possibilities here. Ryan Cook is Head of Performance Sales at EMEA at the digital growth and monetization platform Digital Turbine. The company is leading in ways for helping developers find new audiences and sustain growth in a tough economy. And for this reason, you got to look at it. It's come up very high. I don't know if the singular index is out yet, but I happen to know you've come up a couple notches. And in addition, it's also a Deloitte Technology Fast 500 award winner, championing mobile as the medium of choice. outside of being a full-time ad tech expert, Ryan is a part-time chef with a post-lockdown puppy. So very human and very welcome. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Peggy.
And now we come to the end. We have Arunabh Madhur, Regional VP, Head of Business EMEA at SHAREit. SHAREit, very interesting company I just got to know, but very well timed because the company focuses on emerging markets to make digital content accessible to everyone, named the fastest growing media publisher by Appsflyer in 2020. More importantly, very interesting about P2P sharing. We'll be hearing about that in a moment. He's worked on financial services for Meta, has a lot of experience there. Diehard into Meta because you were also, I believe, thrown into jail at one point in Indonesia when you were working for Meta. I was going to say that's no reflection of performance marketing at that point. But no, seriously, he's all about acquiring quality users, and he likes to spend his time doing what he does best, avid track biker and golfer. So now you understand everyone on the panel, and as you can see, very diverse.
Thank you, Peggy, and I'm
welcome,
very happy
everybody.
that the room is filling up. It's going to be a full house
It's
today.
going to be full, and it's going to be very interesting. So let's start there. Organic, as I said, it used to be organic and paid, led by app stores. That's not the company closest to the customer, which is interesting. It's actually the mobile operator when you think about it, and that's a connection that app developers, games developers are starting to cash in on. Ryan, let's start there. How can they cash in on that customer closeness and be smarter about UA using that connection?
Sure. Thanks, Peggy. Nice long intro, but it's great to hear what everybody else is working on. And obviously, we're also happy that it's dry January, so we have this room filled out on a Monday morning. But segueing into where Digital Turbine comes into place in terms of utilizing the mobile carriers, where we really like to think of that as our supply partners, right? So Digital Turbine is at the heart of the device. And we say that because looking at some of our folks downstairs on the app data that's coming out, we're seeing that Gen Zers are actually spending so much time on their phone. They're looking at that 255 times a day. So if you relate that, it's probably more than we're checking our heartbeat, which might be more to conversate on that. But the main aspect is because we're spending so much time on here, how can we continue to drive installs utilizing our carrier relationships? Digital Turbine partners with all the major carriers globally. If we look at some of those large ones within the US, you're looking at Verizon, AT&T, US Cellular. This is over 800 million devices globally. And breaking that down a little bit smaller, that's 60 million new devices every 3 months. So we're giving that opportunity for carriers to start promoting individual applications to the user. New users on devices are massively influential, right? They're downloading up to about 10 games as compared to someone who's on a device for over a year. They're looking at somewhere around 3.4, 3.5 apps per year. So that diminishes as that duration goes through. So the most impactful time is on new devices. So working those relationships with carriers gives developers a new chance to find users at scale within new devices on the first day of activation and then further from there.
So new device, but also, I would imagine, all devices. Give me an idea about that discovery moment and the benefit, the uplift, the impact we're talking about here, Ryan.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a very seamless way to activate new users, right? You're starting your device. This is not a forced app, ad that's showing within a game that's potentially interrupting it. It's a very innate function of loading up a phone. You're thinking, what do I need? And that might be your banking apps and how to travel, how to get around, but also might be your top games or games you haven't heard of. So it's very sort of natural in terms of how that comes about. And we're starting to see much more higher conversion rate in here. Average conversion rate in terms of sort of installs is 2.2 to 3. We're seeing 6 to 8% conversion rate. And part of this is led by a single tap technology as well. It's not just about the device, but being able to click directly into the app stores and download that app creates a very high conversion rate. So this is huge, especially when 54% of the users are not downloading more than 4 apps per year. We really want to find ways that we convert and give them new apps to find.
Okay. It's also about discovery at a different level with SHAREit, because here I'm discovering via recommendations. Now, you drove more than 1 billion installs a day across the globe. Just unpack that for me, Arunabh. How does that work? And what are you seeing, the quality of those installs through P2P sharing?
Thanks, Peggy. I think our journey is very, very different. And firstly, the panel is very varied today. This panel seems to be everyone outside Google Play Store. So it's
We wouldn't let them in.
No, it's very interesting. What we drive is a very strong peer-to-peer sharing journey. He drives a very strong journeys within OEMs and within service providers. And then we have a larger panel. Peggy mentioned what we really do. We drive close to 1 billion installs transmissions a day. We're a large publisher. About 2.5 billion global users, just top line, about 800 million to 1 billion monthly actives in about 150 countries, 45 languages. The 8th most downloaded app in the Android Play Store till date. What do we really do? We are a utility app. And to this, breaking down, what do we really drive? We drive a very strong quality installs or transmissions which are recommended between one user to another, seamlessly between two phones via Android Bluetooth, Android Wi-Fi via Bluetooth, right? That also means that the journey is what we drive, which is a transmission journey, transfer journey, or install journey, is very, very high quality journey because it's recommended. Ryan recommends something to Arunabh. Arunabh recommends something to Peggy, or to any of the people who are sitting in proximity. For the gaming ecosystem, what becomes really important is these journeys are driven by what do we drive our strong KPIs for anyone. A KPI could be any event which they're really driving on, which could be creating an ads revenue or creating a strong in-app purchase. They're looking at some kind of retention. They're looking at a 7, 27, 21, 30 day. They're looking at multiple re-engagements or retargeting. So Peggy, for us, what we really redefine outside the Play Store, how we can really drive a very strong and unique recommended high quality journeys, install journeys for users. And just to give a little idea, what do we really do? Close to about between 1/3 to 1/4 of Google Play installs are driven by SHAREit on a daily basis in emerging markets globally. I think these are some numbers to just think about it. These are some numbers to talk to us when you really think that what value add can we really bring in driving an organic or a paid install journey, what the real growth hack journey, what we're talking about today.
Okay.
I think that's what we really drive overall.
Okay. Well, we do have you, Hagop, and usually it's about conversion optimization. We'll get to that in a moment because that's also a growth hack. But he's talking about P2P. You're also very bullish about community and the boost that can give a games publisher. Unpack that also a bit for me. What do you think about this and how do you approach cultivating community?
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. I mean, how many of you guys are user acquisition managers here? If you don't mind raising your hands.
I see many of my partners here.
Awesome. So obviously a lot of you guys know that it's becoming a lot more challenging to get efficient in user acquisition. Cost is constantly going up. Apple decided to be the demon in our industry. So therefore, we have to look for other ways we can optimize for, right? You mentioned Peggy's like ASO, which we can all cover in a bit, but I'm really bullish about looking for alternatives, and I will call these alternatives as non-tradition for us, non-tradition for mobile marketers, and one of them being the community building. Probably you guys noticed in the blockchain industry with all the different products came out there, they grew significantly. 99% of their growth came through community. So why don't we, us as marketers for mobile apps, look into that and tap into see how we can grow users that can help us transfer our message out there and increase the engagement and hence grow the network. It's a ripple effect at the end of the day, right? So I would say it's something for marketers to look into is look outside of the tradition. Go and explore in that world and see how you can get there. There's obviously a couple of techniques on how you can start. One of them being is start with some brand ambassadors. You can find them, it could be through your, if a lot of you, I'm assuming, are game developers, it could be your highly engaged game players, communicate with them. Like you have that opportunity to do that. And then the other way, if you're just newly starting, you can hire some ambassadors. There's a lot of influencers out there that are doing the work for us. So have them be your voice, and then let the ripple effect takes into place.
Absolutely, and I've seen research around community-driven marketing, which is going to become a term. Actually, it's the topic of an upcoming book that I'm writing, which is showing there's an impact on retention. So it's hard to do. It's not a short term, it's a midterm, but it does pay off. It is a bit of an investment, which gets to you, Dale, because you want to have high-quality users. You want to have them highly motivated. They may be brand ambassadors, but you are giving me a custom audience. What is that, and how granular can I go?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you consider if you monetize via in-app purchases, that 95% of your revenue comes from only the 5% of users that do actually make a payment. So you have a long tail off of those users who only monetize via in-app advertising. So finding that 5% is incredibly important when you're looking to scale up and hit those like high ROAS targets. And like Hagop was saying, it's becoming more expensive to target. So making sure that all your money is spent targeting the right users is becoming more and more important. So as Bango has a payments platform, we work with the major app stores. We process in-app purchases, billions of dollars of them across millions of apps. We can sort of map the user journeys of where they're making payments, not necessarily where they're playing, which you can use lots of other tools to do, but actually where they're making payments. You might find that users move across different genres that you may not be able to uncover yourselves. If you are an app developer, you can only see what they're doing within your app. We help uncover those journeys across multiple apps, across multiple genres, across the whole ecosystem. So having the ability to target granularly, I think we'll probably come onto it about targeting broadly and how the platforms are advising this. Being able to take back a bit of that control is really important into maintaining high conversion rates and high in-app purchase numbers and scaling them over time. I think looking at where users are making payments is one thing, but we can also break down based on how much they're spending, how frequently they're spending, how many purchases they're making within a set period of time. And you can start to really drill down and find segments of users that are going to be really valuable to you, but aren't always obvious when you look internally at your own users that you have. So yeah, it's a really important tool, and will definitely help you to sort of scale those in-app purchases.
So you're helping me find possibly net some whales. You're helping me, of course, with growth hacking. And then I have the way through the operator, and I have peer-to-peer. So it's a little bit like a dating game for you, Michal. You have all these options. You have to choose one. Now, I happen to know you're on your journey to figure out, paid and organic, how much of each, how am I going to do it? So what have you heard here today, or how are you also on your own journey? Or maybe you're going to switch and take one of these guys. I don't know.
I think I'm going to take all of them.
Probably the smart move, actually, but yes.
No, but literally, like, the landscape completely changed with Apple changes and what they've done a couple of years ago, and with, of course, always increasing prices, and now also the economy puts a pressure on spending of the players, so it's even harder to find them, and it was it's the best year for performance marketing in a way that you have to try totally different approaches for to acquire users and be able to scale the game that you have, right? So yeah, I have to talk to all of them, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because that's the point. In a way, it's building an alternative ecosystem in a way. And you made this point, Ryan, I thought was very interesting. It is an ecosystem of alternatives. What are the ways to grow this to benefit everyone, in particular the UA managers out there who are looking for this, who are ripe for a change? What are your thoughts?
Sure. Cal, is it too early to ask you for dinner?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, so to that point, I think everyone up here has a place, right? I mean, we're seeing a third of people are finding their ways to apps based off of just share it with friends and family. 50% people just say they're looking at apps by research. Just reading an article and TechCrunch or something like that will drive them forward. So there is definitely an organic component of finding apps, and there's a purpose for paid apps. There's even TikTok, Dreams, Candy Crush. everyone's still, they're looking for ways to drive users. They know that there's going to be a share of voice that helps, but there's an aspect for paid as well in a smart way. We mentioned the economy as well. We can't avoid the fact that, that is a troubled place, and what we don't want to see is developers in the ecosystem having to cut back either, like some of the big players that we've seen. So we want to try to find different ways we can acquire users, and the alternatives is key. This is not less about privacy, but more about monopolies from the bigger partners. So I think there's openness to give power back to places like the developers themselves and also to the carriers who can start creating alternative app stores where we're placing recommendations in there to download based off of that individual user. That's a huge place that used to be present. If we date back earlier this morning, a colleague of mine mentioned Duncan on his presentation about how the carriers used to be the ones recommending wallpapers and ringtones and things like that. Why can't they help us in terms of app promotion? So really turning the field into that and utilizing what we've had present in the past, just bring it forward and helping to reduce costs of user acquisition, which we certainly have to do in modern economy.
Absolutely, and the timing for that really couldn't be better. I just have a quick follow-up to you because Michal raised it. He's like talking about, and give the power back to the developer. How do you do that? Because it's giving the control, some of it back to the developer, working with the carrier. Just give me an idea of how that works.
Yeah, so from a developer standpoint, I mean, it really kind of depends down to what application you are and what sort of flexibility you have within that. We're seeing a lot of developers built in experiences within games that can help drive sort of rewarded installs and things there. So you can utilize that strong real estate you have within games if that's suitable. Other than that, it's partnering with others. So you're joining up forces with another game, or as I mentioned before, those alternative app stores, taking presence in those as those continue to grow. Right now, they're not massively present, but it has to come about. And as we said, Apple, Google will have to sort of allow for this. And and we partner with Google very much in terms of all the downloads coming from the App Store. We work very close, but there needs to be alternatives to that, and that's what we're kind of working with today.
So a similar question for you as well. App marketers, games app marketers going broadly now because they can't target. How are you enabling them to take back some of the control that they've lost for retargeting?
I think this question is multifold. And what we try and break it down into many pieces. Today, a gaming publisher, a UA manager, a studio could be a different stage of growth. They could be just at a 5 million, 10 million user subscriber stage. They could be at a 50 million. They could be at a 100 million, right? At what different stages can a publisher really help them? And this conversation is agnostic for all publishers. Also, the control what they really need, because the requirement, the demand for each publisher sitting at that piece of 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million users is going to be very different, because somebody's going to really drive a very large set of acquisition. And to build that critical mass, to be able to drive value and start looking at what kind of revenue they would really want in. Is that in-app purchase, or is that the ads revenue? Somebody who's sitting at a 50 million would look at both, right? They would want to grow in certain markets, which are new markets for them. They could be emerging, they could be tier 1 markets, US, UK, Europe, or larger markets, could be Southeast Asia, could be Israel, could be Vietnam, could be many regions. And they're looking at both acquisition in newer markets and re-engagement, retargeting, a very strong set to increase their revenue, ROI, and ROAS, what they would really want to drive. I think we saw in last 2 quarters, and it'll be realistic numbers, publishers really came down and said, we will not spend money. I think we all saw some winter coming in OND, where publishers decided that, hey, we want to look back and see what kind of real value a publisher can really add to us, to what kind of users we really want to add. And that is where we build a very strong solutioning in terms of what stage are you at, what do you really want from us. Can I build a strong re-engagement, retargeting for you? Can I build the right set of revenue and the app events you're looking at on the set of users that I'm driving? Is the quality right for you? Am I giving 100% or less than 100%? I think we try and answer, and most of the publishers should try and answer all these questions. And And we will see these questions becoming more stronger in future. And that is something we need to be mindful as solution providers, as growth hackers, as building large positioning for us and for our partners in the gaming studios, and see what they really need today and what can our product solutioning can bring on the table.
Dale, on the topic of targeting, I mean, you have that with your custom audiences. That sounds very granular, but give me an idea about, again, how you're enabling publishers to take back control and get those valuable users.
Yeah, I think it goes back to when, we're talking about the increasing costs of targeting from a new user acquisition standpoint. And it's becoming more and more expensive to target, and there's declining returns. So the only resolution that the ad platforms are currently offering is to target broadly. Some of the clients and partners that we work with are saying, they're being told by Facebook, by TikTok, stop doing any targeting apart from AAA. Put all of your money into AAA. And it's a short-term solution. You can get low-cost scale, which is great. But there's a much bigger problem is that in a year's time, when you're starting to plan your future development, what do you know about the users that you've acquired? Where did they come from? What resonated well with them? And if you're getting all of your users through broad targeting, knowing that information is incredibly difficult. And even when it comes to interest targeting, the way Facebook define interest is an incredibly vague term. You can all look into your Facebook settings and go into your ad settings, and you can see which interests you fall under. If you look through the list, I did it a few days ago, I think 70% of the things in there I've never spoken about, I've never clicked on, I've never liked, I've never engaged with. And if everyone is falling into lots of different categories that people are assuming you're interested in, the users you're acquiring through interest targeting aren't even accurate. So it's a big problem, and I think in the long term, if people don't start to take back a bit of that control with the targeting that they're doing and understanding where the users are coming from, it's going to be a big problem for future development, because you won't know what features are going to resonate well with your users, and what features are going to give you long-term growth and long-term success. So yeah, I think it's really important, and it's a big issue that isn't really spoken about much.
So a lot of the games marketers I'm interviewing and talking with, they're saying, total change, targeting, retargeting, go broad, and then see that's just a very costly strategy. Another thing that they're rethinking and changing is, paid and organic. What is that split? Yeah, you need both. At least that's the common wisdom. Maybe we'll hear something else today, but I'd just like to have a few thoughts here about that percentage split and how to get to the right combination. How about you, Hagop? You're also a champion of this, and also shifting your approach.
Yeah, so I think one of the main ways to grow organically that a lot of companies they do is they do it once and then they just forget about it, is the App Store optimization. With App Store optimization, there are a lot of hints and tricks that you can do to help grow the user base, and keeping in mind that the App Store's algorithm is constantly changing. So with that change, you are also in a way declining your visibility. So always making sure that keeping an eye on how you can optimize the App Store will be key. There are other tricks that you can combine ASO efforts with ASA on the Apple search ads. One of them being the spending on impression-based brand efforts on ASA. What's the positive impact of that? Is that when you're doing these efforts, you are automatically improving your conversion rate on your CPA-based campaigns for ASA. So hence, you are, one, improving your cost of acquisition, plus you're increasing your conversion rate. By increasing your conversion rate, it will automatically, both app stores will favor you to increase your ranking. So hence, more organic growth. Another technique we've applied with one of our clients, which was a poker gaming, and they wanted to increase their ranking on the keyword poker. So what we did was we chose that specific keyword. We invested a lot on that keyword just to get the ranking up. So it's kind of like a boost spending, right? So once the ranking went up, we stopped spending on that keyword. And guess what happened afterwards? We saw on a daily basis for 3 months, 10% increase in organic growth. So look into ways where you can experiment. Experimentation is key in our world. never assume that you did this once and it's not going to work. No, keep on trying until you find the wins.
What's that boost campaign look? I mean, it's not a boost campaign, but it's similar to one. I mean, what does that mean with the maintenance? Am I going to do it, get up, and then watch, and then drop and reinvest, or how does that? What's the mechanics of that? Just curious.
Yeah. So obviously, you want to plan ahead. So with the App Store and ASA, you can get the information. If you're using tools like searchas.com or Singular, you will be able to know what the CPIs are or the CPMs are for keywords or the category that you are in. So therefore, you can do the reverse engineering to say, if I spend this much, how much I can increase my ranking. So plan ahead of time. Instead of just say, okay, let's just open up the budget and let it spend until I get there. Obviously, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So doing those calculations first is key. And then you let it run for a certain time window. And certain time window meaning that within 48 hours to 7 days will be the time window where you would spend on that, and then afterwards you will cut the campaign and then see the impact of it.
Okay. We'll have some hacks later at the last round, having each of you sort of tell us how to get the most out of your approach. Ryan, again, that split, what are you seeing? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I think when we look at some of the smallest games in the world and the largest apps in the world, you are both using a combination of this, and there's not a perfect balance. When we look at paid, it's diversification, and that's what we've been talking about here. How can we look at different avenues to drive this? And also over the life cycle of that user. I talked a lot about finding new users, paid users at the very beginning of a new device, but how can we continue to engage, right? 0.01% of the apps and games that are developed throughout the year are going to be successful. That's a very dark stat, right? But our goal here is to make that not happen. We want to continue to show growth and find different touch points that work. Maybe ads loaded when a phone opens isn't the best way. Maybe it's about notifying the user, using the carrier's notifications to engage there. Maybe it's in-game play that attracts that person, whether it's a succinct offer, or maybe it's just that your mom's using an app, so she says, hey, why don't you use this? And then you download that, right? And there's all different touch points through there. We don't have a lot of control over what's going to be in that organic, what's going to be taking off, but we do have control over where our spend goes and how to direct that constructively for growth, both in the first day and in the future. So I would, from a advice standpoint, is look across different avenues. Don't put all your eggs in sort of one basket, right? Diversification, look at different touch points. Users are spending, I think I mentioned this morning, was around scrolling the distance of Big Ben, since we're here in London, every single day. That's a lot of different touch points that we have for those users. So how can we start to activate new users at various different times of the day?
Michal, how are you approaching that as a pragmatist, as a practitioner? How's that shifting? That looking more to organic than paid? What's that split? Give me some idea of optimal percentages that people should consider.
What's difficult? It depends on the scale.
Okay.
Like if you have a new app and no traffic, then you have to get someone there as paid, and it changes. Like we don't have me personally, we don't have an experience at Pixel like to go way big, like to rank the first and the top five games. So we can't really tell. I can't really share like the numbers, like how they look, what's the optimal percentage. But the thing that changed with all the privacy changes, like we look at organic and non-organic as a total, and we make the business decisions as a total, because like we can't make the distinction on iOS whatsoever, and on Android will be changed as well. So you have to get the data right. You have to start. If you want to try a new channel, for example, start small and don't go way big. Those are the mistakes. We can go to the mistakes. We sometimes invested way too much time and money into networks that didn't really show the value ultimately. So if somebody tells you like, okay, go with this, be really skeptical about it and start small, like only a couple of tens of thousands of dollars, and then if you see value, then scale. don't. I think that if there is an advice, like test, but be cautious about it.
But a lot of people, including yourself, there was I'll call it maybe the COVID bump or whatever you want to call it, and it's really about winning back relapsed users. People have different things or changing and shifting their attention. So it's more of a retention play in a way. How does that split then look? Because that's very different. It's easy, it's clear that when you're starting out, experiment and be careful. But this is people who are saying, look, I have an audience and I want to keep it, I want to grow it. What does that look like? Because that's where you are as well. You're trying to fix that leaky bucket of retention.
Yeah, there are like twofold things. Like with the targeting, like it's extremely difficult to target like new users, and also like labs. Like you can run retargeting campaigns if you don't have the marketing IDFA or Google
Exactly.
ID. So
that's why we're all here.
If you have them, okay, run the campaign. Don't, like in my experience, don't go too wild. Focus on payers that lapsed. But ultimately, to be honest, like running retargeting for games specifically, if some player like churns because like he hated the game or like it got bored eventually, it's really, really difficult to get him back. And if you have the capability and chance to get him back, at least run a survey on him, like what was the things that bothered him, and then this feedback that you can collect is essential for improving the product and improving the retention profile at the end, right?
All right.
So that's one thing, and then if targeting is gone and you can't really target, like you have to adjust the product itself. You have to make like, okay, get the whales, monetize them as much as possible, but you have to also address the players that never spend in the games and they only maybe watch a handful of videos. So it's even more important to adjust the product to suit more the player base, wider player base basically, because the future is with some targeting, but ultimately we have to go much broader. The product needs to address larger audiences than ever before.
Great segue, because although we have more, it is an audience probably with questions. I just want to take a break at this moment. Take your questions. Are there questions for the panel? You're all looking for answers. Okay. Well, I'll segue then to the rapid fire to wrap up, because I know Kelly wants us to be on time, and I will not let you down, woman.
Indeed.
I will not let you down. It won't happen. So just a rapid fire, because I find that when I'm doing these sessions, if it's about growth hacking, it's like, okay, I'm sold on these solutions. Let me understand. Oh, a question?
No, I was recording.
Oh, okay. It's pure gold up here. Okay. But what happens is, it's like, great, I get it. How do I get the most out of what you're offering? I understand what you're doing, and I understand the problem. So I'll just go down the line. The most of what you're offering, how do I hack it? How do I get the most out of your approach at Bango?
Yeah, I think it's a three-pronged approach. I think you start off with targeting audiences of your competitors. You know who they are, but targeting their users is incredibly difficult. So we can help sort of provide that solution to enable that to happen. The second is then start to look into crossover categories, and this is information that we can provide. If you're a puzzle app developer, what are the top 3 categories that those users are also making payments in outside of puzzle? And you can start to target those segments to sort of widen your pool of targeting. And then the third is to break it down by high LTV categories. So if you have your top 3 categories of crossover payers, which ones have the most payments, which ones are making the most payments, which ones are spending the most? And when you start to layer all 3 of those on top of each other, you get lots of different targeting options that you can really take back control in what you're doing.
Okay, keep going. You don't have to worry, because you're a practitioner. You're making your decision between these guys. Hagop, quick one.
Yeah.
Rapid fire.
If I would sum it up, so we talked about the importance of ASO, so constantly looking into that and constantly optimizing it and grow organically. The second one, we talked about the community building. You can start today by hiring those brand ambassadors, or tap into your gamers that you have, your highly engaged gamers, and ask them to be your brand ambassadors and create your community boost. Lastly, with attribution, SCAT 4.0 is here, right? Like, talk with your MMP reps and see if you can gain access to it and learn how to optimize for it. There's 3 main points you were getting back with this SCAT 4.0. One is we have 3 attribution postbacks. So depending on your game, long LTV term or short LTV, You can optimize for that. You can decide when to receive the data. And lastly, you're going to be able to share more data with your ad network. So look into it today and optimize for it, because I believe with SCAT 4.0, we're going to get something back from Apple.
Reach through mobile operators. How do I get the most out of Digital Turbine?
I've got a very rapid time. So I'm going to break it simply looking at the first day and every day when you're looking through user acquisition. Approach those users through the carriers and devices on the first day of their starting devices, then think more intelligently of how we can address those users down the line through either in-game play, notifications, or otherwise. So look at that journey across that first day and every day for that user.
My hack is simple. I will do targeting for you. I'll do optimization for you. I will do whatever he said to you.
Wow.
We grow you, so talk to us. I think whatever journey of your game you are in, you're launching, you're small, you're large. The idea is to bring some value, grow you, bring the right set of users, create acquisitions, create engagements, create your upper and lower funnel journeys, and I think bring revenue on the table for you and for us both. I think that's a conversation we should look at, and we will end up looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Great panel. And I think Ryan and Michal, you guys are set.